Okay, it's me up next in the staff bikes, and I'm sure you've had enough of the boys and their fancy pants carbon machines, so here's something a bit different. This is my Dward Design Singlespeed. It was made for me by Ed Mason of Dward. He used to review for us on road.cc when he was at university, and then for a while he built frames, and now he makes very nice CNC machine titanium parts like the ones that I'm showing you. There's a link to his shop in the description below. At the time, he was working for the Bicycle Academy in Frome, just down the road, and he built this up for me in his spare time. Now, this is really a story of two bikes because the geometry of this Singlespeed is based on another bike that I own and love. Back in 2012, Nicest introduced the Tripster ATR frame set, and I was lucky enough to review the first version of that bike back in 2013. I love it. I liked it so much that I bought the frame set after the review, and I've still got it in the shed. Currently I'm running it as a gravel bike, but it's been everything from a cyclocross bike to a touring bike to a winter road bike. It's just a really, really versatile frame, and the geometry of it suits me perfectly. So when I was looking for a Singlespeed, I really wanted something with that same geometry, and I couldn't really find anything that fitted the bill. Everything was a bit more track and a bit racier. I had a couple of other things on the wish list too. I wanted it to be a disc brake bike because disc brakes are better. You can agree with me or disagree with me in the comments below if you like, although it's probably futile. I also wanted the bike to be through axle because that should give me just a little bit more choice when it comes to choosing wheel sets and hubs in the future. And this is a bike that I wanted to have a long shelf life. So we got the measurements from the Tripster, and Ed put together this frame out of a combination of Columbus and Dodacii tubing. I can't remember now which bit's the which, it was a while ago. The fork is a TRP fork that I used to have on the Tripster that's been painted to match the frame. I had several hours of fun trying to bash that nuke-proof headset into the frame before it finally dawned on me that the insert was too long. I had to get Ed to machine it down. That was a bit amateur hour, as were some of the different aspects of the build, but we got there, and I think you'll agree, it looks lovely. Now, at the time I had this built, which is probably 4 or 5 years ago, you didn't see all that many disc brake single speed bikes. Now, one of the reasons for that is you tension the chain by moving the hub at the rear relative to the bottom bracket to take up the tension. Now, you can do that with an eccentric bottom bracket, but it's not really a solution that I like because you're introducing friction surfaces at the bottom bracket, and that always ends up causing creaking anyway. If you're shifting the rear hub, then the rear brake also needs to move because otherwise you mess up the braking surface on the disc. So Ed designed and built these really nice CNC machine dropouts. The flat mount disc mount moves with the axle as you move it forwards and backwards. It's proved to be super reliable. I've never had any trouble with it at all. The brakes themselves are TRP's Hilux hydraulics, and they are excellent. Now at the front I've got a Shimano 160mm rotor. At the back I've got what looks like a Tektro 140. They don't match, one's centre lock and one's 6-bolt, and also they were just what I had lying around at the time. The bottom bracket down here is threaded because threaded bottom brackets are better. Specifically it's a T47 external with some Praxis Works bearings, and I've got a set of old Praxis cranks that I had in the shed too. Again, I've had absolutely no issues with that setup. It's been rock solid, and even when I've been grunting up the hills around here, you know, in an inappropriate gear with my considerable frame, never been any hint of flex. Now, I wanted this bike as a sort of winter training, all-axe, all-purpose machine, and I've always planned to have Dynamo lighting. Now, my original plan was to drill for the Dynamo wire so I could run it internally because there's room in the T47 bottom bracket to get the wires and hoses around the axle. You can see that the hose runs internally. Anyway, somewhere along the line we forgot about that, and it ended up not having those holes. So I needed another solution. So if you remember when Di2 used to be able to run externally, I got a load of that Shimano Di2 external routing conduit, painted it to more or less match the frame. It's blue anyway, stuck it on the bottom of the down tube. That looks pretty neat, to be honest. If we move on to the wheels, obviously I've got a Dynamo. The front wheel is Hunt's 4-season Super Dura disc with a Son Deluxe Dynamo hub. Now, I've had 2 pairs of these. They've proved to be really reliable. In fact, the other set are currently on my Tripster. The lights themselves are Son too. I've got an Edlux 2 at the front here and a matching Son rear, both in lovely blue to match the frame. I wanted to mount the rear one on the mudguard to keep it out of the way of any bags I might fit. Managed to find some random bit of aluminium in the shed that was more or less the right shape for a mount once I'd taken the file to it a bit. Now Hunt doesn't make a single speed through axle disc brake rear wheel, unsurprisingly, and to be honest, there wasn't a massive amount of choice at the time that I was building this bike. There was really only one hub, and it was made by Paul Components, and it was quite expensive, but it is a lovely thing, and I managed to blag a matching rim from Hunt and built up the rear wheel myself. Now, if you look really closely, you'll be able to see that I've used a rather esoteric lacing pattern where you get 2 spokes pulling right, 2 spokes pulling left as you go around the wheel. This is a mistake, obviously. I didn't mean to make it like that, but it's been absolutely fine, and I can't be bothered to take it all to pieces and do it again. And you know, it's done thousands of kilometers now. Most of the finishing kit on this bike, it's just stuff I had knocking about really. So the stem and the bars and the seat post are all the original stock components from my mid-range Merida Sculptura race bike, which have been swapped out for slightly fancier bits over the years. So alloy stem and bars and a carbon seat post. I mean, they all match, so that's nice. There's a Salsa seat post clamp. You can see that that's got a mount for a rear rack, but I don't actually have any dropout holes in this frame, so I don't run one. What I tend to run is this Paradise Barley saddlebag, which I think you'll agree looks very lovely. This is a very limited edition one. It's Harris Tweed version they made, I don't know, about a decade ago. There are only 16 and mine was made by Sue, it's number 4. The mudguards are from Kinesis. They're fend-off aluminium, which I really like because they're super solid and they don't rattle at all. After I built this bike, I told myself I'd sort out the spacing around the rear wheel as it folds behind the seat post, but to be honest, I never got around to it and it doesn't really make any difference, except for aesthetically. As you can see, I've added a little bit of reflective tape on the back of each one, just to give me a little bit of extra visibility after dark when I'm on Audaxes, which to be fair, I haven't really done that many of on this bike so far. The longest ride I've done is 150 kilometers across the flatlands of the top of kind of Norfolk to Cromer for a family holiday. At some point I'm planning to head back to Suffolk and do one of those nice long Audaxes that heads up to, sort of into Lincolnshire and back around the flat bits of the coast. That is scheduled in for next year. The bar tape is some stock standard Dedda stuff. I did have some posh Supercars bar tape, and in fact I still do, it's still on there. When I start to wear it out, I just double wrap the bars because actually I prefer them that way because I've got big old spades for hands. The saddle is a Repente Competitus 4, I think, which is a lot more comfortable than it might look. And the tyres are Mavic Ixion Pro USTs, which were in the box of tyres when I was looking for some tyres. So, not exactly chosen. They're 28mm, they're tubeless. I'm running them tubeless, they're perfectly serviceable. The only other thing is some SPD 520 pedals and Elite Tusi Inox bottle cage, and that completes the build. Now, I've had it set up single speed and fixed over the years. Mostly around here, I run it as a single speed because it means I can run a slightly lower gear for all the steep hills without having to spin my legs like an idiot when I'm going down the other side. When I'm doing flatter rides, I swap out for a fixed cog. So at the moment I'm running a 4217, I think this is, 17 tooth sprocket. The fixed cog that I've got is a 16, which gives me a slightly bigger gear. Anyway, it's just about the right gear for around here. Sometimes I could do with an 18. As you can see, the bike isn't pristine. There's some dings and scratches along the way, but I really love this bike. Of all the bikes that I own, of all the bikes I've ever owned, this is the bike with the nicest ride. It's even nicer than the Tripster. It's a proper magic carpet of a bike, and the geometry is just perfect for the kind of riding that I want to do. It's super reliable. You can ride it all year round with basically no maintenance, and it's perfect as a winter workhorse for those days when you really don't want to get one of your nicer bikes out of the shed with all those bits that tend to go wrong in the salt and the rain and the horribleness. Everyone should have one of these. So there you go, that's my Dward Design single speed. I hope you've enjoyed this little tour around it. I don't know who's up next, but their bike won't be as niche as this. I can almost guarantee it. If you've got any questions about this build or about getting a custom bike built in general, ask them below, we'll get them answered for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this on Road.cc.